Free agency looms, trades have been made, and the time for a mock draft is now. Join us as we predict it all here on this 2-minute drill. With free agency not having started yet, I like to dive into the free agency pool and make some predictions. So I have the Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers, giving a first this year, number 13, and a 24 third-round pick. I have the Raiders signing Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett heading to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield going to the Arizona Cardinals to help fill in for Kyler Murray during his absence, and Carson Wentz going to the Atlanta Falcons, hoping to compete with Desmond Ridder for the quarterback job potentially over the course of the season or helping as a veteran presence. At the running back position, I have Joe Mixon getting cut and signing with the Chicago Bears, David Montgomery going to the Los Angeles Rams, Damian Harris going to the Buffalo Bills, Leonard Fournette, who's just recently been cut, going to the New Orleans Saints, and Devin Singletary joining the Denver Broncos. At wide receiver, I have Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the Kansas City Chiefs, DJ Chark signing with the Carolina Panthers, Adam Thielen going to the Dallas Cowboys, and Allen Lazard going to the Arizona Cardinals. I also have the New York Giants trading for DeAndre Hopkins, sending pick number 57 and a 24 conditional 4th or 5th round pick depending on his performance. And at the tight end spot, I have Dalton Schultz signing with the Houston Texans, Mike Gesicki signing with the Carolina Panthers, Robert Tonyan Jr. signing with the San Francisco 49ers, and Irv Smith Jr. signing with the Detroit Lions, as well as Foster Moreau signing with the Miami Dolphins. Now we move on to the trenches, where I have offensive tackle Jawaan Taylor signing with the Chicago Bears, Donovan Smith signing with the Tennessee Titans, Mike McGlinchey signing with the Miami Dolphins, George Fant signing with the Buffalo Bills, and Isaiah Wynn signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. On the interior of the offensive line, I have Dalton Risner signing with the Las Vegas Raiders, Isaac Seumalo signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, David Edwards signing with the Indianapolis Colts, Ben Jones and Gabe Jackson heading to Atlanta signing with the Falcons. On the other side of the football, I have Javon Hargrave signing with the Chicago Bears, Greg Gaines signing with the Seattle Seahawks, David Onyemata signing with the Houston Texans, Shai Tuttle signing with the Falcons, and Derek Nottie signing with the New Orleans Saints. At the edge rusher position, I think Zadarius Smith eventually gets cut, and I think the San Francisco 49ers make a lot of space restructuring players and go all in by signing Zadarius Smith opposite of Nick Bosa at the edge position. Marcus Davenport goes to the Chicago Bears, Bud Dupree to the Kansas City Chiefs, Robert Quinn to the Tennessee Titans, and Leonard Floyd to the Atlanta Falcons. At the linebacker spot, I have Jermaine Pratt signing with the Chicago Bears, TJ Edwards signing with the Carolina Panthers, Kaiser White signing with the Washington Commanders, Eric Kendrick signing with the Los Angeles Chargers, Devin Bush signing with the Seattle Seahawks. At cornerback, I have James Bradbury going to the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamel Dean signing with the Minnesota Vikings, Byron Jones continuing to play his career, signing with the Houston Texans, Patrick Peterson signing with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Shaquille Griffin signing with the Arizona Cardinals on a 1-year prove-it deal. At safety, I have Jesse Bates going to the Atlanta Falcons, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signing with the division rival Washington Commanders, Jordan Poyer signing with the division rival Miami Dolphins, Taylor Rapp signing with the Las Vegas Raiders, and Marcus Epps signing with the Houston Texans. Now that that's over, let's get to the mock, shall we? To start things off, the newly acquired number 1 pick belongs to the Carolina Panthers, and all signs point to CJ Stroud, so I won't battle it. Frank Reich gets his face of the future, and the Panthers start a new era with the former Buckeye leading the way. With the second pick, I have the Houston Texans taking quarterback Bryce Young out of Alabama. The 49ers-style offense that Ryans and Slowick will bring to Houston is built on efficient quarterback play, and Young is as efficient as you can ask for out of a prospect. Add in his additional abilities, and he's the perfect quarterback for this offense. With pick number 3, the Cardinals receive plenty of phone calls but decide to stay put and select Will Anderson Jr., edge rusher out of Alabama. The Cardinals need to build an identity on this team, and getting someone of Anderson's caliber can help them achieve that as they try to turn things around in Arizona. Next up are the Indianapolis Colts, and they go ahead and take Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. Ballard has gone pocket passer after pocket passer, and I think he probably views Levis higher than Richardson. While it's not my personal opinion, I still think this can be a great pick and potential franchise quarterback for an organization that desperately needs one. With the 5th pick, the Seahawks finish off the first-round quarterback batch by taking Anthony Richardson out of Florida. I know they extended Geno, but the way the contract is structured, they're in a good spot to take Richardson and let him sit for a year or two in order to polish and grow his game. Seahawks got lucky getting a top 5 pick from Denver, and they need to take advantage of it with the upside pick of Richardson to be their future. At pick number 6, the Lions decided to take Oregon cornerback Christian Gonzalez. While this is a loaded cornerback class, Gonzalez feels like the top dog of the bunch to me, and Detroit could use a stud at the position. Getting Gonzalez here is a great step for the defense that has slowly been improving since Dan Campbell came to Detroit. With the 7th pick, the Raiders missed out on the quarterback run, but they aren't too upset because they get Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter and add to their defensive line. There's been plenty of smoke surrounding Carter that he could slip a little come draft day, but the fall won't last long here in this mock as the Raiders would benefit greatly from getting him on their roster. And next up, the Falcons take Tyree Wilson, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. With their pass rush situation, they could still use some difference makers in the trenches, and Wilson has the upside and talent to potentially become a premier pass rusher on the outside. For the Falcons, that type of presence is much needed. Moving on to pick number 9, the Bears are on the clock now, and they take Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. The versatile pass rusher seems to be loved by the NFL, and I think he'd work well adding to the defensive identity Chicago is trying to build. With the 10th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock, and they take Joey Porter Jr., cornerback out of Penn State. The Eagles need to inject some young talent into their secondary, and JPJ is a great fit for the coverage scheme. At pick 11, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock, and they take Paris Johnson Jr., offensive tackle out of Ohio State. Even with Smith signing in free agency, they need to figure out the long-term offensive line answers, and Johnson has all the traits that NFL teams should love. At pick 12, the Texans look to add to their weapons, and they take Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. JSN has had a volatile draft stock on the media side, but ends up the first off the board here and should be a great weapon for Young going forward. Now at pick 13, the Green Bay Packers have this pick after the Aaron Rodgers trade, but they decide to trade it again to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who move in to add Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Cutting Smith was absolutely necessary, but the need at tackle still exists. Getting Jones and Wirfs as your bookend duo for the future is very promising for Tampa Bay. At pick 14, the Patriots continue the run on tackles, and they take Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Wright was phenomenal all season for the Volunteers and even shed some weight in the offseason and killed it at the Combine. He could go even higher than this on draft day. Keep an eye out for him. Now on the clock with their original pick, the Packers grab Nolan Smith, edge rusher out of Georgia. After blowing up the Combine and just the general energy surrounding Smith, he seems to be a lock to be a top 20 pick, and here at 15, the Packers add a high upside, exciting piece on the edge that can be a long-term stud for the defense. And with pick number 16, the Commanders take Illinois cornerback Devin Witherspoon as they desperately need secondary help, but this isn't just a draft for need. Witherspoon is a great talent and could easily be off the board by this pick on draft day. Next up is pick 17, and the Steelers decide to pair up Pickett with his old friend and USC wide receiver Jordan Addison. While this isn't necessarily the biggest need for the Steelers, they feel okay adding a great playmaker to the offense and creating one of the more exciting young receiver trios in the NFL. At 18, the Detroit Lions are back on the clock, and they select Brian Brzee, defensive lineman out of Clemson. While his 2022 season was littered with injuries, sickness, and much more, the upside and talent is undeniable, and being able to grab him here at the middle of the first is great value for Detroit. With the 19th pick, the Packers now have this pick after the trade down with Tampa Bay, and they select Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. The Packers could use some secondary help, and getting Branch in to play some safety and slot corner should help the defense tremendously. At pick number 20, the Seattle Seahawks trade down, and the Cincinnati Bengals are the suitor as they move up to take Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas. I know the Bengals don't usually trade up, but they've been changing their ways in recent years, and getting an offense that features Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Bijan Robinson is scary, so the move is well worth it. Pick 21, the Chargers are up, and they go and draft Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. Flowers is a well-rounded wideout that can serve as the team's deep threat, but also work around and fill in other ways as needed if Allen or Williams end up hurt during the season. With the 22nd pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU. It's clear a lot of the offense was unhappy last season with the Ravens' operations, and taking care of Lamar by getting him another weapon would be a great step forward, assuming they figure out the contract situation. Into 23, the Minnesota Vikings take Myles Murphy, edge rusher out of Clemson. While he generally goes higher in mocks, I think this is a more realistic range for him, and the Vikings would be happy to take him as he steps into Zadarius Smith's old role. Next up is pick 24, and the Jacksonville Jaguars take Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. Whether he ends up at tackle or guard is up to them, but they add some additional talent to their line and additional protection for Trevor Lawrence. After that is pick 25, and the New York Giants select Drew Sanders, linebacker out of Arkansas. Sanders is a great frame with versatility to rush off the edge that makes him a great pick for New York here and helps add to their defensive talent. With the 26th pick, the Dallas Cowboys take Cam Smith, cornerback out of South Carolina, and this is a great add here at 26 as Smith has a great frame, good instincts, and good aggression, a perfect match for Dan Quinn's defensive scheme. At 27, the Buffalo Bills take Texas A&M safety Antonio Johnson. With Poyer departing in free agency, the Bills need safety help, and I think Johnson has the size and skill set to succeed at both safety spots as needed. Next up at 28 is the Seattle Seahawks following their trade down, and they select Kalijah Kancey, defensive lineman out of Pitt. Kancey is an exciting pass rusher on the interior, and Seahawks seem to love the unique player builds. Kancey may not be the next Aaron Donald like some are trying to hype him up to be, but he's still a very talented presence for Seattle to grab here late in the first. At pick 29, the Saints select Adetomiwa Adebawore, defensive lineman out of Northwestern. Adebawore is another exciting smaller defensive line player that could fill an immediate need for New Orleans after losing many pieces at defensive tackle in free agency. Getting Adebawore here should help shore that up with upside for him to be a tremendous player down the road. With the 30th pick, I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Osiris Torrance, offensive guard out of Florida. The Eagles invest heavily in the trenches, and with Sumalo hitting free agency, I think right guard is an important position for them to address now. Torrance is a steamrolling mauler that should help them continue to dominate on the ground without missing a beat. And finally, with pick 31, the Kansas City Chiefs select Felix Onyedike-Uzomah, edge rusher out of Kansas State. Even with Bud Dupree signing here in my mock offseason, I think edge talent is much needed, and getting a long-term piece in Onyedike-Uzomah is a great way to go about adding it. And that's all here for the mock draft. Comment down below, let me know what you think. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, we very much appreciate it, and that's the 2-minute drill.